All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Chaha Kodash. Double honors to the head apostle, and that is a great millstone who rule well and teach well. This is the brother Matthew from the GMS Virginia camp, coming to you through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Yahweh being a true, holy, powerful name of the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shai being a true, holy, powerful name of his only begotten Son, who this world ignorantly calls Jesus and Christ. Bahashem is in the name, and Lord willing, this will be an edifying lesson. I'm not sure what I'm going to entitle this lesson, but I want to play a couple clips. If you haven't seen in these various different news reports on, this man getting launched by a bison, right? Which he appears to be an Edomite. And Esau Edom, the so-called white man, which his biblical nationality is an Edomite, he is the problem of the earth. The earth knows it. The animals know it. And more the people, the nations, are starting to realize it. I'm going to play a couple clips of this individual in Yellowstone National Park being chased and tossed by this bison. And Esau, even in the event of something like this, where you would look at something like this and say, why were you so close to this very large animal? What were you doing walking around, chilling, eating, taking pictures of an animal that can get very, very violent quickly? Why were you so close? You got what you deserve, right? Well, but Esau doesn't think that way. Okay, let's go ahead and play this.
This was the terrifying scene at Yellowstone National Park. A bison charging toward a man and a young person. Moments before, the two taking photos from a distance as it lays down when the animal gets up and bolts in their direction. They try to run and hide as the bison chases the man around a tree, shakes another one. And then the bison slams into that man with brutal force, throwing him feet into the air.
Yeah, it never came into their mind that, what am I going to do if this bison starts running full speed at me? What's my game plan? What's my escape plan? Okay, and as you saw, he obviously didn't have a game plan. He thought he was good. He thought he was straight, right? And Esau even tries to come up to these various different animals, the bisons as well, and tries to pet them, tries to get close. And then they end up getting trampled. They end up getting stomped. Various different things happen to them. And in some instances, the national park officers will actually put these animals to death, for acting out on people, which is just madness, right?
This was the terrifying scene at Yellowstone National Park. A bison charging toward a man and a young...
If you don't know how big a bison is about as big as your car, big as your SUV, right? A medium-sized SUV.
Person. Moments before, the two taking photos from a distance as it lays down when the animal gets up and bolts in their direction. They try to run and hide as the bison chases the man around a tree, shakes another one. And then the bison slams into that man with brutal force, throwing him feet into the air.
Yeah, and the animals are tired of your ass, man. All right? The animals are tired of your ass. And you can go into the history of Esau Edom and the things he's done, to wildlife, which he's continually doing, right? Esau's done atrocities to animals, to wildlife, forest, to the air we breathe, the water we drink, to the oceans, the marine life, right? And these animals are acting out. They want vengeance on the so-called white man. You're seeing these boat attacks, these yacht attacks of these killer whales, right? You got to ask yourself, why are these killer whales just all of a sudden attacking these yachts? Well, if you go into, you know, SeaWorld and these various different uh, sea animal parks and zoos, how do you think they got that giant whale in that bathtub? They took that whale at a very young age from its family. Okay, and they say killer whales are one of the smartest animals on the planet, and they can remember. All right, they have a very good memory. Okay, so it's not a coincidence that these whales are attacking these boats. It's not a coincidence that these various different animals are acting out primarily on the so-called white man, right?
It was like watching a bulldozer move out at 45 miles an hour.
Photographer Mike McLeod recorded that video but stopped and ran to help.
And when you approach this man, how is he?
He was in a lot of pain. He was conscious, I think, the entire time.
The National Park Service confirming a 65-year-old man was injured by a bison and taken to the hospital. McLeod says he's in touch with the man's family.
It sounds like he has a broken leg in several places. The doctor said that he probably would recover, but it's going to be a long recovery.
The man's family telling NBC News he underwent surgery and remains at the hospital. This incident, the second in just 2 months at the park. In June, a 12-year-old was also hurt by a bison. The National Park Service says people should always stay more than 25 yards away from them and to run away if one charges.
Look out, bison! Look out!
A frightening incident at one of America's most iconic parks. Camila Bernal, NBC News.
I got another video clip I want to play as well.
Being seen at Yellowstone National Park, a grandfather out on a walk with his grandson was attacked by a charging bison and thrown at least 8 feet into the air. He was injured but is expected to be okay. ABC's Melissa Dunn has the latest.
Tonight, these are the heart-stopping moments. A grandfather was attacked by a bison at Yellowstone National Park. The dramatic video posted online by a professional photographer shows a bison, which can weigh more than 1,500 pounds, charging after the 65-year-old, flipping him into the air. You see the man and his grandchild stop to take photos of the bison. Seconds later, the massive mammal then charges, chasing the family around.
Yeah, he didn't want his picture taken that day. And what are you doing that close to an animal of that size capable of tossing you 20 feet in the air? Huh? Talking about the grandfather and his grandson were on a simple walk or stroll for the park. No, you invaded on this particular animal's territory. Okay? You got too close. All right? When you saw the bison, you should have went the opposite direction. You should have gotten your vehicle and left. All right? But that's Esau Edom for you. All right? Which I got another video that, Esau, he damn near wants to go out and pet these animals. Right?
Trees before the man is thrown multiple feet into the air, seriously injuring him.
Look out, bison!
Another video shows the bison running past tents at a campsite before the incident. The grandfather is lucky to be alive. Millions of people visit Yellowstone every year to see the park's famous wildlife. Unfortunately, this is not the first time we've seen bison charging tourists.
Yeah, that won't be the last time. And primarily, I would say 9.5 times out of 10, these animal attacks at these national parks are on Edomites. I don't think I've seen a Jake get attacked by a bison, a wild animal at a national park, right? A tourist place that I can recall.
Charging tourists.
As for that 65-year-old, he was hospitalized and is recovering from his injuries. Yellowstone National Park warns people to keep at least 25 yards.
Yeah, 25 yards ain't enough, as you've seen in this video. I want to play this one too. This is tourists. This is from 3 years ago. Tourists get too close to a bison fight at Yellowstone National Park.
Crap! Look at this power.
Well, for you.
Holy crap. Hey, you guys need to back up!
Two Edomites just, casually 5 yards away from the bisons, which are clearly taller than their Subaru. just filming and watching, like, yeah, a bison can't, you know, take you and your car out the picture, right?
Out! They'll kill you.
Here comes
And when something happens, there's a big uproar, there's a big cry. Oh my God, how could this happen? Right? No, it's your stupidity. Okay.
referee.
Oh my God, my heart is thumping. Look at the fur on the road.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's not forget about Esau Edom's, slaughter of the buffalo. Years ago, the Buffalo Massacre of 1870, and there's various other different um, massacres on wildlife, etc. Which I'm gonna pull up some information on that real quick. Now I pulled up some information on the Buffalo Massacre of 1870, and we're gonna leave that still shot right there. Esau, you know, uh, getting tossed about 10, 15 feet in the air, right? with his overalls on, you know. He even had the look. He even had the look of something that, if a buffalo could live long enough, it was very familiar to him, you know. This is the Buffalo Massacre of 1870. The Buffalo Massacre, or Great American Buffalo Slaughter, was the mass extermination of an estimated tens of millions of North American bison that peaked between the 1870s and the 1880s. It was driven by commercial hide hunting and encouraging by the U.S. Army to force indigenous Plains tribes onto reservations by destroying their primary food source. You hear that? So Esau sought out to basically exterminate all the buffalo in efforts to drive out the so-called Native Americans out of their land, okay, and to make them dependent on them for food sources. Okay, and I'm gonna pull up some images of Esau just stacking bison and buffalo skulls, 20, 30, 40 feet in the air, right? It says the drive for extermination, the slaughter of the American bison was not an accidental byproduct of westward expansion, but a highly effective and brutal military economic strategy. Economic and industrial drivers, the completion of the transcontinental railroad, and the invention of a tanning process in Europe that could turn bison's hides into commercial leather created a massive lucrative market. Professional hunters flocked to the Great Plains, stripping herds of their hides and tongues while leaving the carcasses to rot. Yeah, Esau just hunts for sport. He just does it just because, right? He wants to see his gun go off. He wants to see how far his bullet can travel. He wants to see death, right? It says the U.S. federal government and military commanders recognized that the bison were the foundation of life, economy, and culture for dozens of indigenous nations. By implementing a scorched earth policy, the U.S. Army actively endorsed and sanctioned the slaughter, successfully starving the Native Americans into submission and confining them to government reservations, right? Which you got Gad and Reuben, in these various different reservations around Babylon the Great, which are the poorest places on earth. All right. You can't say these, which the ghetto and these favelas and these various different areas, are very poor. But the poorest place in Babylon the Great are the reservations. Do your research. Okay. It says recreation and tourism settlers and railway companies promoted buffalo hunting as a sport. Trains routinely stopped to let passengers shoot bison from the windows, leading to the widespread indiscriminate killing. So there you have it, man. Which Esau still does this to this day in just a various different methods and various different fashions. Let's read this as well. Devastating impacts. Before the arrival of the Europeans, Esau Edom, right? There were an estimated 30 to 60 million bison roaming North America. 30 and 60 million. Remember that number, all right? 30 to 60 million bison roaming North America. It says by the late 1880s, fewer than 1,000 bison remain. So Esau damn near exterminated every single bison from 30 to 60 million to fewer than 1,000. Okay? That's why the scriptures say this man is as death. It says the near extinction of the species caused a catastrophic economic and cultural shock for the indigenous peoples who relied entirely on the bison for survival. Once the animals were gone, plain tribes faced starvation, were forced to surrender to their nomadic way of life. All right. And now Esau wants to act like, we have to protect the bison and the buffalo. They're endangered species. Who do you think you made them endangered? Right? Got some scriptures I want to pull out. Start in Habakkuk chapter 2. I'm going to start in verse 4. It says, behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. Right? This man is as death. Wherever this man goes, death follows. The death of the wildlife, right? The animals, the plants, the trees, anywhere this man goes, and he goes all over the planet Earth. Here it is. Esau has a campaign to burn down and destroy the Amazon forest, which the Amazon forest is responsible for a large percentage of the oxygen of the whole planet, right? It says, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases, which is not his. This land ain't yours, Esau, you stole it, right? It says, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. This man's, continually going more and more into debt. Shall not all these take up, Slaki, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake thee shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of thy people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood and for the violence of the land, right? Esau is very, very violent. And we just went into some of the violence of the land concerning the Buffalo Massacre, which was ultimately set out as a war military tactic against the so-called Native American Indians. It says, and for the violence of the land for the violence of the land of the city and of all that dwell therein. Esau was violent towards you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. The Israelites were over on this land of America before the so-called white man came over to this area. The Israelites were at these various different islands, okay, before Esau, Edom came over to this particular area. It says, verse 9, woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and hast sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. And this place is saturated with the blood of you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And this is the information that Esau doesn't want out there. He's ashamed, okay, of what he's done and how he's come to this level on the planet Earth, right? That's why he tries to hide it. That's why he's trying to erase history. That's why he's trying to get rid of certain books. That's why he labels you if you try to speak about it or talk about certain things. He labels you as someone who's teaching hate, right? No, this is just facts. It's not hate. Matter of fact, before I get this next scripture, let's I want to pull up some images if I can find it of Esau stacking up buffalo. Here it is. Here, let me switch the screen real quick. All right, here it is. Yeah, you see it. Look. Come on, man. What is that, like 30, 40 feet of nothing but the skulls of bison and buffalo? From 60 million buffalo to roughly 1,000 buffalo and bison, right? The herds, the stampedes that basically shook the whole ground. Gad used to write about how, the stampedes of the buffalo, would last for days and could be heard. You could feel the ground shaking from miles and miles away, you know. Well, after Esau came over here, that ceased to exist, right? Look at that. That's a man right there, and he's standing on a buffalo skull. So you're looking at like 30 feet or so of nothing but buffalo skulls, right? And this is Esau takes pictures about it. He was proud about it back then, right? Now speed up to 2026. Esau tries to hide it. Hey, be proud about what you've done, Esau. Stand up, be an Edomite. Accept what you've done. Okay, stop trying to play the victim. Stop trying to play like you care about people and you're about human life and wildlife and about the overall well-being, all right, of citizens when you're not. Okay, like we just read, this man is as death, and he cannot be satisfied, right? No matter how much gold and items and wealth that was brought to Esau, from Gad and Reuben, Esau wanted more. He was never content, right? Gad and Reuben brought gold to Esau just in hopes that they wouldn't invade their tribe, wouldn't come through and, put them in death, or throw them in gold mines, whatever the case may be, But nah, Esau said to himself, well, if they can have this, if they can bring me this much gold, there must be a larger portion somewhere that they know about, right? And you can read about a lot of that in the book, The Devastation of the Indies. Good book to check out. Yeah, so you see it. Let's go to Numbers 35 and 33. It says, so ye shall not pollute the land wherein you are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed, but by the blood of him that shed it. All right, so your blood has to be shed. Simple as that. And the whole earth is going to give vengeance on you Edomites. Okay? The animals are patiently waiting to get their hands on you, and you're already starting to see it. Okay? Hey, in the kingdom, let me pull up this other Salakia. Let me pull up this other still shot. Yeah, in the kingdom, hey, this is gonna be everyday thing for your ass, Esau, right? The couple of brothers was talking about in our camp in the chat. In the kingdom, this is gonna be an everyday thing, man. Games are gonna be set up, and you're gonna be forced to play, you versus the animals, right? Make it to point A to point B without getting attacked by a lion, a tiger, a bear, a bison, a hawk, right? The animals gonna have fun with your ass in the kingdom. So you devils get ready for slavery, man. And it's gonna be unimaginable. You can't fathom with your mind, okay? You don't have the smarts to fathom what you so-called white people are gonna go through when you're taken down, right? When the kingdom was established and the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are put in power over you and these other nations. Let's go over to the book of Romans chapter 8 and verse 19. And it reads, for the earnest expectation of the creature waited for the manifestation of the sons of Yahweh. So the whole earth is in mourning, is and groaning, is in pain, is ultimately waiting for the kingdom, for the Israelites to be put in rulership. It says, "For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willing, but by reason of him who has subject the same in hope, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of Yahweh. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now." Right? So the creation is groaning and travailing in pain. This man wants to do weird experiments on the animals. He wants to pollute the air, chemtrails. He wants to make GMO products. These dwelling places where these animals live are polluted with trash and various different chemicals because of Esau Edom. Let's go over to the book of Isaiah, the 14th chapter. And let's start from the top. It says, "For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors." So our oppressors, these other nations, these Edomites, you're going to be taken captive. It says, "And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow and from thy fear and from the hard bondage where thou was made to serve." And who made us to serve in that hard bondage? The Heavenly Father Yahweh. "For thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, How hath the oppressor seized the golden city seized? The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the ruler." So right now, Esau still has that staff, okay, in its full form, in its full shape, right? He has that scepter in his hands. He has the power. He's been put in the position of power by Yahweh, by Shem Yahweh Shai, right? Favor has been shown to him, but he still will not deal uprightly. He's still not going to deal justly. He was made and created to be the wicked. It says, "He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke," and that's trickled on down to the animals, the wildlife. It says, "He that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, and none hindereth." His anger, his hatred towards you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans ultimately resulted in the Buffalo Massacre of the 1870. From 60 million buffalo to roughly 1,000 buffalo, right? It says, "He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger is persecuted, none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing." So the whole earth is going to be rejoicing. The animals, the plants, the wildlife, the creatures of the sea, the creatures of the air, the people are going to be in rejoicing when Esau Edom is taken out of power. It says, "Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou art laid down, no fellow has come up against us." Right. I was just going into how, Esau basically wants to destroy the Amazon forest. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, the Amazon forest is bigger than the United States of America, just to put that in perspective. And is responsible for a good portion of the oxygen of the planet Earth. And it reminds you of that movie, what is that movie with the little blue creatures, which they represented the so-called Native Americans? I just slipped my mind. It's all right. It'll either come to me or Joachim can put it in the comment board. It'll come to me in a little bit, but nevertheless, let's keep reading. It says, "The whole earth is at rest and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou art laid down, no fellow has come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations, and all they shall speak and say unto thee, Art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us?" Because Esau's not going to have that power no more. Verse 11, thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? That represents these wicked elites, these wicked elite Edomite banquet families, the rulers of the earth. It says, how art thou cut to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahweh. This man is trying to pollute the space, right? He's trying to pollute outer space. It's like, let me pause this real quick because I gotta plug this computer up. All right, continuing on. It says in verse 13, Isaiah 14 and 13, for thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahweh. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. This man's polluting outer space. He wants to put data centers, okay, and hundreds of thousands of satellites to basically encase the whole planet Earth, right? It says, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. He wants to be like the Heavenly Father. Verse 15, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Yeah, so Esau is striving to be like the Most High. He's striving to have the whole earth bow down and worship him. And in his efforts, it's all going to backfire, right? It says, yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble? Key word there, man. Going back up to verse 12, where it says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Because this is what these scriptures below are speaking about. These wicked elites that consider themselves the illuminated ones, right? And going back down, it says, is this the man? So we know this is talking about a man, not the spiritual demon Satan. A lot of these Christians will try to say Lucifer is speaking about the spiritual demon Satan, right? It says, they that see thee shall, back in verse 16, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble and did shake kingdoms? He made the whole earth tremble. He put the animals in fear, right? He slaughtered the animals. He slaughtered the whales and the fish, right? You don't have fireflies no more, you know, bumblebees and, you know, gnats are you know, scarce now. You know, things are damn near going extinct under the rulership of the so-called white man, right? It says, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of the prisoners? All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under foot, right? It says, thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children, for the iniquity of their fathers. Okay? Yeah, you got to pay for what your forefathers have done. All right? And when you go into it, you really are your forefathers. And bison tossing, this is going to be an everyday event in the kid. It's going to be not every day, but it's going to be a you know, a multiple throughout the week event in the kingdom. You know, watch bison and buffalo, and then bison and buffalo in the kingdom are going to be very, very more larger than they are, right, that you see on the earth today, because the whole earth is not thriving the way it should because of, you know, the rulership of Esau, Edom. So those bisons are going to be 2,500, 3,000, 4,000 pounds. They're going to toss you 40 feet in the air. Right? You're going to be getting stuck on trees. That's going to be another task for you other Edomites. You're going to have to go get these other Edomites that are stuck and impaled on these 100-foot, 50-foot trees, right? It says, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. It says, for I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut them off from Babylon, the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. The Lord's going to come through America, Babylon the Great, and sweep this place, right? All that's going to be left is dust. The scriptures say that there's not going to be left neither root nor branch. It says not going to be left neither root nor branch. That's how great the destruction of America, Babylon the Great, is going to be. By fire, by the intercontinental ballistic missiles, by the laser beams for the chariots, okay, by the these volcanoes, because they're at Yellowstone, which is a national park, but Yellowstone is basically, the majority of Yellowstone is like a colossal volcano, which I believe is the largest volcano, if not the one of the largest volcanoes on the planet Earth. And that's another thing. When these missiles hit, all these volcanoes are going to erupt. Yellowstone National Park is going to erupt, and all that magma and lava is going to spew into the atmosphere, and further the destruction and the burning of America. That's why the scriptures say this place is going to look like a lake of fire. It says, I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. The Lord of the hosts hath sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass. This is going to happen, whether you believe it or not, whether you receive it or not, whether you scoff, you mock, talk shit. Hey, that ain't going to change nothing. The scriptures say the Lord of hosts has sworn, saying, surely as I have thought, so it shall come to pass. And as I have proposed, so shall it stand. And there you have it, man. Lord willing, this was edifying. I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Chahak Wadash. Double honors to the head apostle, and that is a great millstone who rule well and teach well. To the next time, Shalom.